And now we go to South Carolina and to that fatal police shooting. The North Charleston police, they have released this dash cam video. And as you see in this video ahead here, the officer approaches Walter Scott's car. That's the black car there in the foreground, and speaks to him. Then after that, a few minutes, the driver runs away. What this doesn't show is the shooting of Walter Scott. Now, we did see that shooting that was captured by a passerby later on. Officer Michael Slager, he is behind bars facing murder charges, and he also has been fired from the force. Now, the FBI themselves is investigating this shooting. Now, right after this video of the killing surfaced, police officials, I think almost everyone would agree, handled the situation a lot differently than the way things were certainly done in Ferguson, Missouri, for example. The officers in South Carolina, within an hour of receiving the video, they arrested the officer. They met with the family, the victim's family. They held a news conference. They kept the public informed, and they quickly got the feds informed, and obviously they terminated the officer as well. But even though they did that, people are still protesting right in front of the police station. And, you know, Dom, I said this last night to the attorneys, this issue, whether it be in Staten Island, whether it be in Ferguson, whether it be in Cleveland, whether it be now again in South Carolina. I think people forgot the other incident where the guy was asked to go for his license registration for a seatbelt thing, went for it, and the cop shot him 4 times in the driver's seat. But I don't know how the next year isn't even worse than this year with all the training and everything else. We have video that is substantiating claims that people in certain communities have been saying for a long time. You have police who feel that they're under assault and on the defense right now, and you have, I think, more tension than I remember. I mean, you can certainly go back to 60s and 70s in different parts of this country, you'll see it much worse, but in recent memory, it's on a knife's edge here in certain communities. It won't take a lot to tip it over. You agree that things are, we got to be real careful right now in this country on this subject, right?
Definitely, Richard, no doubt about it. I agree 1,000% with your assessment. The situation in South Carolina, number one, I'm having a hard time understanding. You mentioned the protesters. Now, I don't know if they're local people, but I don't understand the need to protest right now. This has been very different than any other situation. The mayor in that city and the police commissioner must be commended for the immediate, swift action that they took to deal with this. Now, Richard, there's also a lesson in this for journalists, because we need to be ashamed of ourselves. We have to, and I respect police officers, they put their lives on the line every day. We have to stop taking the spoon feed of what they give us and just printing it like it's law. Because the fact of the matter is, some police officers lie as well. Obviously, as to what just happened in South Carolina. I recommend that everyone look at the news coverage prior of this same case, prior to that video coming out. He was already condemned as a criminal. Everything in his past we knew about, and it was the regular story. I felt threatened, black man reached for a gun, reached for my taser, and now, this is going back, and I'll be done in 2 seconds. This is going back to what happened in the 70s, when police would carry some throwaway guns. And if it's a questionable shooting, you put it in the dead man's hand and drop the gun right there. And that's exactly what appears to what have happened.
Well, it
right
certainly
here.
Looks like he dropped what appears to be the taser after shooting 8 times, and you can see the man running away from him. It was a taillight that sparked all this. Yeah. And then found out, I guess, that there was some child custody payments or whatever, child support payments, but whatever. The only thing I thought about this, Bill, was if I didn't see this video, what would I have thought?
Yeah.
You know, and Dom hit on a lot of it, but I said, if you don't have video, how much is the context changed? Now, do body cams solve this? I mean, they're a start, but do they really solve this? I mean, they're cost prohibitive. Andrew and I were talking this morning, but let's say we found the money and gave every officer in this country a body cam that they had to affix in addition to the dash cam. Does video solve this problem?
I don't know if it does. I mean, I think I mean, obviously there's a great move towards bringing video into departments across the country. I don't know if it changes policing. I mean, will police be as aggressive as they need to be with a video camera? Probably not. It's going to change the relationship on the street, which is maybe a good thing. In this case, I got to say, I was in a jury duty years ago, and they said, is anyone for this jury or prospective jury, would anyone believe a police officer's account over somebody else's? And I raised my hand. I was the only one. I said, yes, I would. If I hadn't seen the video, I would inherently, and this is an admission, I would believe the cop. I would believe his thing. And thank God that the guy got the video, and he was brave in doing it because he was up pretty close there. But I would have believed the police account. I would have.
If there were no video, he was shot 8 times in the back, right? Would the autopsy and the report afterward, would that have discredited the police, the officer's account? We'll never know, right? But put on even our cynical hat. I'm telling you, I've had debates. I take up for cops. I think that, I mean, it's easy to sit in a nice air-conditioned studio and talk about real, but when you see that, forget about no defense for it. I mean, oh my God. I mean, who does something like that, you know? And I don't know.
We've seen too many cases where shot in the back doesn't necessarily equate wrongdoing. So I'm not convinced that you would have gotten from an autopsy the same kind of results or anything close to what you're getting with the video. You asked Bill, do body cameras solve this? I'm less interested in trying to solve it with one piece. Let's try in multiple different directions and see what we can do to stem some of the problems. I think body cameras would help. I think, you know, the type of policing where it wasn't even his taillights, it was the third one, the one that's in the back seat. That one's the one that was out. And it's, you know, that's less about traffic safety and more about let's see what else this guy's got on his record. Let's see what other problem that he poses. The fact that he could be going to jail for not paying back child support, I think that's something that needs to be looked at. I mean, I think there are all of these elements. What leads him to run? What leads police to use deadly force? What other kinds of tools could police have turned to instead of deadly force? Why didn't the taser work if he used it appropriately? Don't we have technology that could put a man down without killing him?
Well,
I mean, we need to explore all of these things.
If anybody for a second thinks this is about just South Carolina or anything,
no.
This heightened tension even goes to New York City, okay? Obviously, Eric Garner's death, a big part of this. But when I said that there's tipping points here, we're seeing this. Rev Calvin Butt, the head of the influential Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem, is saying that if Mayor de Blasio, you don't get more left than him, if Mayor de Blasio doesn't make big changes to the NYPD on top of what he's already done, he's going to rally people to vote him out of office in 2017. Now, Butt sent a letter to de Blasio with a list of demands. He wants the officer who killed Eric Garner to be immediately terminated. He wants to stop over-policing in what he calls black and brown communities. And he wants immediately to end the stop, question, and frisk policy. The numbers are way down, but it still exists. And he also wants to set up a dialogue with community and clergy leaders about improving community policing. Dominic, to me, this is significant only because de Blasio got passes on a lot of stuff because of what he campaigned on and what, to a certain degree, he's already delivered. If you look at the pacing right now for the stop and frisk arrest, there was 800,000 the year prior he came in, and I think it's 40,000 for the first quarter this year. It's a perceptible, it's a real drop in that. And crime hasn't gone up in the interim, too. But what's the significance, beyond the politics, I know there is, but what's the significance of even Butt saying, I'm going to work to get you out of office, de Blasio.
Who endorsed Giuliani? Who endorsed Giuliani, by the way.
Right. But see, you can't excuse the politics because poor Reverend Butts, he's doing this for attention. See, you have to understand that Butts and Sharpton don't like each other. They don't say it publicly. And so you have Sharpton, the kingmaker, who has the mayor's ear. And that drives somebody like Butts, who has a real constituency at Abyssinian Baptist Church, that drives him insane. So what this, and I know both of them real well, and I know what I'm talking about on this because I've had private conversations with each of them. And so Reverend Butt's point of view is, wait a minute, Mr. Mayor, your head black guy should be me. So that's what this is really about. And Butts is using the issue. And you have to remember, he was pulled over by the police himself. even as the pastor of Abyssinian, and he has a history of using inflammatory rhetoric when he, in an interview with me, called Mayor Giuliani a racist, and it made Page One News the next morning. So this is nothing new for him, but this is really a play for Butts to get some attention.
That list of demands is impossible. I mean,
right, and the demands are impossible.
Pantaleo. Yeah, Pantaleo. Sorry, it's been a while since we said his name. He couldn't fire him if he wanted to because of the collective bargaining agreement.
To get back to something you said, Andrew, I think another issue that has to be addressed is adrenaline. The issue of adrenaline. I mean, this whole thing is just crazy. You watch that video and it's a lazy afternoon and a guy gets pulled over for a taillight and suddenly you have someone killed. And you have a cop popping him off like that. You have the adrenaline pumping through these guys.
You got the guy hopped up, jumps out of a car, and he plugs a 13-year-old within 2 seconds of jumping out of the driver's seat.
Right.
And the kid's got a toy gun in broad daylight. I mean, I can go down the list here.
People don't like when I say this, and I try not to say it, but welcome to my world, gentlemen. This is my world. The police, see, we can all sigh. The police are going to deal with you differently than the way they deal with me. With you, you're going to get sir. They may call me an N, and if I resist a little bit, I'm thrown up the wall, charged with resisting arrest, spending the night in jail, handcuffed, on and on and on, if there's no deadly force used.
So then the question becomes, see, I think I know where some of these debates are going to go. Take North Charleston. Population there, a little under 50% black, 30-something% white, and balance, obviously, other. Police force, 80% white. Are we going to have conversations in this country about residency requirements for cops? Yeah. Quotas? That the PD's got to be representative of it? Those are going to be the next fights. You think we've had fights now? Imagine you want to be employed in the NYPD, you have to live in the borough of the Bronx or Brooklyn or wherever else instead of up in Rockland or in terms of, West New York or somewhere else. Those are going to be huge Titanic fights.
But
same thing in quotas.
I don't think it's necessarily about race or about residency. I think the only color that plays into this is blue, and I've said this before.
Oh, I think black's a big color here,
There is a code of silence behind police lines. You know, in every department, the cops know who the bad cop is, but that cop's still working. It's the same way that teachers know who the bad teacher is, or anybody in any group knows who the bad one is. But it reminds me of the no snitching thing from a few years ago that we heard about, kids in the neighborhood. Nobody wants to rat out the bad cop. And I think there's a little bit of code of silence here among the police.
I know you got to move on. That black cop should be charged immediately. The one that came over. Right. Because there's no way in the world he didn't see that throwaway taser drop to the ground.
There's your example.
To this point, we don't know he did. It certainly looks like you're right, though. All right, they're yelling at me. We got to get to a break. Before we do that, I want to remind you, you can get involved in our conversation. Head over to Facebook and Twitter and sound off on our question tonight. In the wake of the latest shooting in South Carolina, should body cams be mandatory for police officers, period? Stop. Coming up next, we got some breaking news when it comes to Hillary Clinton. We're going to tell you about a potential big announcement she might be making, and it looks like this thing's going to come sooner than later.